just setting the live stream up. It won't be long. Okay, we begin. So while we're waiting for people to arrive, I'll just talk away for a few moments. The major thing we're going to be looking at this evening is how you can get a flight plan into the FMC of the Boeing 747. Because, as you will have discovered if you've tried to operate the 747 in flights in 2024, the FMC isn't complete. So you can't do quite a lot of different functions in it. And the execute button doesn't light up either. Hopefully they'll fix that, obviously, in one of the upcoming updates to the simulator, but you never know. So I'm going to show you along the way how to shoehorn a Simbrief flight plan into the aircraft. So I'm just editing the description of the video actually before we get going, because I'm going to run through the checklist that I have prepared, and I forgot to put a link to it in the video notes, so I'm just going to edit that before we get going. So if you bear with me for a few moments. Okay, so if I just save those changes, I'm just updating the description of the video to include a link. Okay, so yeah, we're going to have a play with the 747, partly because I'm a bit annoyed that, I'm surprised, not annoyed, that's the wrong word, I'm very surprised that any builds have actually released the A350 before the update to the sim, which means it's broken unless you're running the beta. Anyway, we're not going to get into that. We're going to have a look at the 747 today. So how do we go about doing this then? So let's go over to Simbrief and we'll go and put in, we're going to create a new flight plan in Simbrief. So we'll put in a made up airline code and flight number. So we're going from OMDB, which is the ICAO code for Dubai, and we're going to go over to Mumbai, so that's VABB. If you don't know them, you can always look them up, so you can do a search in here, and I could put in Mumbai, for example, and there it is, look, VABB. So you can do it the same way. Okay, so we're from OMDB to VABB, and we want the 747-8. So B748. Where is it? Am I being blind? Yes, I am. 748, there we go. So, and then we'll say generate flight. And that will go and get us a Simbrief flight plan to look at. But all we're really interested in is the detailed routing information, because it's got the SID in it, it's got the star in it, and it's got a departure runway and the arrival runway, and some... If you ever looked at this and wondered, what are these numbers? I don't know why they chose the letters N and F, but that's the flight level, and that's the speed, the cruise speed along the way. Okay, but you don't need them for routing, so you're going to see me get rid of them. So we are going to borrow the routing information from the Simbrief flight plan. We're going to take that over to the flight planner, which is at planner.flightsimulator.com, and we're going to go straight into the route page, and we're going to paste the route from Simbrief in here. We're going to delete that bit with the altitude and the speed, and we're just going to say, well, we could go and correct the altitude that's in here to 39,000 feet. So, and then just say save, and it will read it and make sense of it. Okay, so there's that same route that we saw in Simbrief, and we can see the same route in Navigraph as well. Okay, because I imported the Simbrief one a moment ago into Navigraph. We could go and do that just to prove that I'm looking at the one I've just made. So if I go import from Simbrief, it will get the latest version of the one we've just made, and there it is. Notice that Navigraph doesn't pick up the approach. So we can go ILS to runway, was it 09? Let's just double check. Yeah, it was just number 9. So as long as we're coming into runway 9, we'll choose a nice one, so ILS 09, and that will give us the chart for it as well automatically. Anyway, the important thing here is we've put it into the planner in planner.flightsimulator.com. So then we can save this, and we'll call this 747 OMDB VABB. It doesn't matter what we call it, and save the plan. That means that's now in the cloud. And that's the hack we're using to get it into the aeroplane. So we are going to go and, first of all, go and walk around the aeroplane, because we have to, remember, because it's the stock one and it's got some ridiculous things in it about us having to walk around clicking on things. I think that's what we have to do, actually. Should we just have a quick wander around the other side just to make sure? Don't think it's got any other things hanging off of it. No. So Shift C will bring us back, then backspace will put us in the cockpit. Okay, so at this point I'm going to grab my second mouse, which I think I've left switched on. Yes, I have, thankfully. I have to rearrange my desk because I have not prepared to do this properly. And I'm going to work through the checklist. So just out of interest to show you this, I've linked to it in the notes of the video. I'm going to be working through a checklist of my own design that's available from my Ko-fi shop. And you can see here, it's got how to set up views. You don't actually need them, I don't think. But then you go, it's all the things to do around the aeroplane. So we need to get rid of the engine covers and the pitot covers. Then go obviously around. It tells you what keys to press. Obviously we're going to miss out all of this stuff about programming the flight plan because we're going to cheat. I'm going to show you a hack to get around it. I might put some notes in this document and make a new version of it. So this obviously shows you everything to do basically to get the airplane up and running. So that's what we're going to be running through. Okay, so Shift and 7 takes us overhead. We need to uncage the battery switch, turn it on, and recage it. We can turn standby power to auto, and then external power 1 and 2 to on if it's available. It was, and rotate the APU to start, and it falls back to on its own. And we wait for the APU Gen 1 and 2 to come up. They should illuminate with a veil when they're ready. So we just wait for that to happen. Shouldn't take too long. Famous last words, of course. There's no way of actually seeing, I don't think, in this version of the aircraft, the state of the APU as it fires up. So we'll just sit here with a bit of a pregnant pause, waiting for these lights to come up saying a veil. There we go. So then we can turn on the APU generators. So we've come off of external power automatically. And we'll just go and switch the ADIAS system to nav across the board. We're going to arm the emergency lights. So I have to remember where they are in the 747. Second column at the top. Okay, they're up the other end. Emergency lights go to armed and caged. And I don't think we have to do anything with any of the rest of this stuff. So Shift 7 again. Nav lights go to on or down, which is over here. Window heating to on and anti-ice. So let's get this right. I haven't done this for so long. So where's window heating? Turn that on. And wing anti-ice to auto. So wing anti-ice to auto. Okay, so that's the engine anti-ices. They're already on auto across the board. Okay, so then we're going to come down, or we would normally come down. We can do Shift and 4 to get to this to see the MCDU. What we're going to do instead of trying to program this, we're going to pause in it, and we can put in our reference airport. It really doesn't matter because I'm going to overwrite this in a moment. So we're at OMDB at the moment. And we can put that in. I'll show you what the problem is actually. So if you go to the next page, yeah, we don't have to do anything in there. So you go route. And you could go and fill this in. But as soon as you get to go and put in the SIDS and the stars, for example, you won't be able to. And obviously you'll also not be able to go and pick up, or you'll have to laboriously program the routing in. So also notice it's already saying activate, and it really shouldn't. So we could say activate, and we could say execute. And it's saying we've got an active route from nowhere to nowhere, which is obviously nonsense. So what we're going to do is press tab in the aircraft, and we're going to go to the flight planner. And that's interesting, it's still got this. So load flight plan. We've got our one we saved from the planner website, 747 OMDB VABB. So we'll load that. So give it a few seconds, and it's loaded it in. So there's all of our routing. But notice it's also got the arrival procedure and the approach procedure in there. And it's got the departure procedure as well. And the departure runway. So it's got everything. Yeah? So in here, we can then send this to the avionics. And it will work. Give it a moment. There it goes. Look, it's done it. It's filled it all in. But notice it's saying modified route. So if we say execute, it becomes the actual route, even though it wasn't lit up. So if we go and look in here now, unfortunately we can't go and look at departures and arrivals because it hasn't been implemented in the FMC, but they are there. So if you come and have a look over here now, if you put this onto plan mode and zoom out a bit, the other way, you can actually see it's all in there. It's cool, isn't it? So it's kind of a hacky way of getting a very complex route into the stock 747, which was the major problem that was wrong with it. So I kind of hacked my way into getting it in, and now we can get on with starting the airplane up. So we can skip the whole section in the FMC about setting up the performance data. But we could go into, though, the... and I'm going to get this wrong now, aren't I? Init refs, it calls it, doesn't it? So we want the cruise altitude for our route. So we're going to go back and look at the flight plan. We want flight level 390. So 390 and drop that in. Cost index is going to be 25. So we'll drop that in. Zero fuel weight, it should work it out for us, shouldn't it, in this aeroplane? And we'll put a reserve of 1 ton in. We don't really care about it being too realistic. Thrust limits are grey. Takeoff, so we'll do 10 degrees flaps for takeoff, and that will give us our V speeds, because we've got, remember, it already knows the runway and everything. It got it from Simbrief, and the CG will calculate for us, and we're done. So we've got the performance data in, the route's already done. So we can now go across, and I'm just going to scroll down through my things here. So the MCP, Master Control Panel, for the autopilot, we can go and set this up as well. So let's go and put this up to 39,000 feet, wasn't it? Whoa! Went a bit too high there. That's 39,000. Oh yeah, we're going to put the flight directors on. Follow my own notes for a change. Hey, calibrate the altimeter, so I'll press comma to get them accurate. Set the heading as required for departure. So if we go and actually have a look at where are we taking off from? 30 right. So if we go and put 300 degrees in, at least it will be in the neighborhood. Let's do this from one side. It's easier to get to the knobs, isn't it? So we want 300 degrees. Okay, set the altitude, we've done that. Then set the indicated airspeed, that's already at 200, that's fine. And set LNAV and VNAV as required. So I'm not sure what this airplane is going to do. Will it allow us to preset it? Yes, it will. We haven't actually looked down through the legs to see if there are any discontinuities, so that might be worth having a look. I'm not expecting... Oh, look, it's saying modified route again, so we just say execute again. So next, next, next. I'm just looking through to see if there's anything... No, it's a perfect route, so it's fine. Good. So press legs again to come up to the top. So we're kind of working our way around the failings of the aeroplane to make things that work. So we got the flight directors on. We've been able to set VNav as well. Can we have vertical speed? No, it won't allow a vertical speed and VNav. That's a shame. Sometimes some of the airliners will let you. So we'll say climb out 2,500 feet a minute on vertical speed, and then we'll switch to VNav as we take off. We'll also go... Yeah, it's not going to allow speed mode. Obviously, when we go VNav, it would drop speed mode anyway. It probably won't allow that unless the autopilot's the auto throttle's armed. We won't arm it until we get to the runway, though. Okay, so having done all of that, we need to come down here. Notice the stabilator over there. We need to move that trim into the middle of there, which we've just done. And the range on this is fine for our purposes. We could bring it down a bit, I guess, just so we can see the route nicely on takeoff. What do we do next? Pushback. It says pushback and engine start. We're already there. So if we go and press... So yeah, preparing for... Well, we can do the pushback now, I guess. We'll just be sat out on the tarmac for a while, starting the engines. So if I come outside and press Alt and P, the truck will come out to us. So sorry, I'm kind of involved doing this at the moment. I'm not actually looking at the live stream comments. Oh, okay, so we're having a big discussion about the British car industry. I've just shown you the best navigation hack ever for the 747, and you're talking about old British cars that aren't worth saving. Brilliant. Okay, so come off the parking brake, and it's pushing us a direction. I don't know if it's the right direction, and I have no control over it, which is a bit of a shame. What runway were we actually wanting to take off from? Let's go and look at the map. So runway 30 right. So we're going to need to double back and do a U-turn to get down there. And we're going to need to cross a runway. So K12, I guess, is the good point to do it. Is this ever going to stop pushing us backward? Well, I think we're going to have to stop it, aren't we? Let's see what happens. And this is going to push us around in a complete circle. No, it's going to stop there, look. Oh, no. Is it going to turn us around the other way now? No, it's going to leave us in the middle of the tarmac pointing the wrong way. So, parking brake back on. So, back in the aircraft. We're going to press Shift and 7 to come overhead. And going to go and put the fuel pumps on for the tanks that have fuel. Not all of them have got fuel because we don't need a full quantity of fuel to do the flight we're going to do. Beacon light goes to on, or both. Engine bleed, check the APU is on. It is. Engine bleeds for engine 1, 2, 3 and 4 goes to on. And then to start each engine, we are going to pull the starter for each engine up above. So pull out number 4. I'll do this from the normal view now. And you will see now the numbers are coming up. Or they should be. Yep, we got them coming up down here. Look, N2 is increasing. So when N2 gets above 20, we can advance the fuel control run switch for the engine. we'll start to hear some engines coming to life, hopefully. Have I actually put the sound to come out of my headphones? I don't think I have. I have now. And now we are starting. Actually, I'll wait till we've got the engines off. Started, sorry. Then I'll go and do the hydraulics. Then we can get the flaps into position. So yeah, it all makes sense. The written procedure actually works. So that's the first engine, and now engine number 3. So we're waiting for an N2 of greater than 20. $15, $17. There we go. And you wait for you can wait for the plunger to fall in basically on its own, and then you can go for the next engine. If you go and look outside, you can actually see it happening. Whoa. So these two are up and running, look. We're going for engine number 2 next. So having done that, we monitor N2 and then go for that one. So we can actually see it starting to move. Actually, we're only seeing the turbofan spinning there. This is the gas turbine being spun up by the compressed air. So having done that, you'll see N1 is the turbine speed. So you can see the speed increasing as it comes up. So you can actually see that happening, look. I didn't realise this for the longest time. I think I've talked about it on the channel before, about how turbofans actually work. The turbofan is free spinning. It's not connected to the... there's no mechanical connection. So the hot gases leaving the gas turbine spin like an impeller on the back of the axle that passes through the engine. And that axle leads all the way to the front, and it's got the giant turbofan on the front of it. So the hot gases drive the little propeller on the back, which drives an axle which drives the turbofan. I'm being a bit tardy with doing that, aren't I? Got busy talking again. So Martin's saying this plane's one of those capable of flying the really long distance. Yes, it can fly all day. It can fly from right the way across the the transatlantic route. You can do kind of 15-hour flights in it, no trouble. Okay, so engines are now up and running. So now we've got the engines up and running, we can go and do some other stuff. So looking overhead, we can turn the APU to off, and the APU over here can go to off. Pumps 1, 2 and 3, 4 for hydraulics can go to auto. And the packs 1, 2 and 3 can go to on. So that's the air conditioning packs. External light section taxi light can go to on or down. And we are ready to taxi. So now we've got hydraulic power, obviously, we can go and move the flaps into position as well. So if we go over here and have a look at the lever as we move it to make sure we get 10 degrees. There we go. And if you look outside, you'll see the flaps begin to, or hopefully, you can see them just gently moving. They're quite slow moving. You can see the leading edge slats drop down really quickly. They're a bit mechanical, aren't they, compared to an Airbus, but it's nice to see. It's almost like a pantograph, isn't it? In there, the way it extends it. Okay, so we need to do a U-turn. Check for any messages. TCAS is off, so should we go and put TCAS on before we start taxiing? So TARA. We're not going to be using ATC, so we don't need to go and put a frequency in. And it's just now saying about the fuel overrides, which is interesting. If we go and put the rest of these on, maybe there was fuel in other tanks then. After all, yeah. So it's fine now. Look, gross weight, total fuel 188.3. 188.3 tons of fuel. Let's just have a quick look on here at the amount of fuel we've got. Loads. Loads and loads. Okay. So, head tracking on. And we're going to turn ourselves around and go down towards the other runway. So Martin's asking, haven't PMD made one? They're making one. PMDG are developing the 747 right now. And I gather from what I've read, as soon as Sim Update 1 comes out for 2024, the PMDG fleet will be out not long after. So the 737s and the 777 will be out in pretty short order. And to be honest, they need to, because they're going to get their lunch eaten by everybody else. I'm sure they're more than aware of that situation now. So let's put the head tracking on again. Okay, time to taxi. So we want to come all the way down to K10, K11. Let's hope we can read the signs from the air. K7. So the main aim of tonight was just really to show you that you can hack the routing information into the aircraft. But now we're going to actually set off and do a several-hour flight just to illustrate it, really. And to test if it really does work. So these are the two routes across, look. It's coming up over here. We'll go for the second one. Looks like a bit cleaner route. Actually, the first one's fine as well. Just going to turn off the head tracking for a moment so we don't go and confuse ourselves. So there's our runway over there, look. So obviously in the real world you would stop at the holding points and wait for permission to cross the runways. But we've got no traffic around. Oh, this time, this aircraft, yeah, you can't compare it against the 737. It's probably twice as long, at least. It's not until you see them parked next to each other you realise just how big a 747 actually is. I mean, until very recently they were the biggest thing around, weren't they? In terms of passenger aircraft. I think it's over twice the wingspan of a 737. Okay, here's 30 right. Straighten us up, put the parking brake back on for a moment. Okay, so we've got some things to go and do. So overhead, we're going to go and put the strobe lights on and put the landing lights on across the board. And Shift and 6 goes to the aft console. Make sure we'll put for takeoff, normally you'd put this on TA, the TCAS. Otherwise, the autopilot, when we kick it in, could respond to anything nearby, because, well, in an accurately simulated plane, this one isn't, obviously, but it's just good to explain that TA means we're transmitting our position, RA means we're receiving the transmitted position of other aircraft, and our autopilot might take a conflict. If it's in RA mode, it will respond, and it could try and climb or descend to avoid. So takeoff notes. Brakes need to go to rejected takeoff, which is over here. It just pressurizes them up really ready. So, so if you do slam the brakes on, they really can throw the anchors out. Throttles go to toga, rotate at about 160, gear to up obviously, and taxi lights to off once we get off the ground. So obviously you want all the lights on possible. Okay, so you can see, just looking at the display there, have we got some brightness controls around here for the screens? I'm not sure where the brightness controls are in this 7.4. Everything seems a bit dim, doesn't it? Maybe it's just the sun shining on everything. Anyway, we'll leave it alone. So, throttles forwards. Straighten the aeroplane up a little bit more. Shall we go Alt 8 and 7? There we go. So about 160-ish normally. Yeah, you can see the V speeds on the. There we go. It's a little bit of a crosswind, tipping us over. Gear up. With caution. And we should be able to just go autopilot on. And then we'll go VNav mode as well. And what's it going to do? Yeah, look at this. Is a failing of this aeroplane, the modelling of it. It takes ages for it to kick in, look, and it's just doing it now. So it's on LNAV and VNav. It took a while, look. It's always a bit death-defying to watch it do that, because it's rubbishly simulated, basically. And it's not going to climb, is it? It's taking no notice of the VNav. Let's cycle the VNav. Have we got any constraints to worry about? Oh, will this even show it? Probably not. Oh, they're already on there. So above 3,000 feet by the time we get to that one. Okay, it's okay then. So let's go and lift the flaps now a notch. And lift the flaps all the rest of the way, and let's see what it will do in terms of... Has it got any airspeed constraints it's working to? Actually, yeah, it has, look. It's keeping it remarkably slow through these first few waypoints. Should we go and have a look at the chart and see if that's realistic? So we're doing this departure. 190 knots, 220 knots. Okay, yeah, it is. It really is keeping it slow on purpose. Oh, it's, yeah, max 220. I guess that's going to be noise abatement issues, isn't it? With all these trillionaires living along this coastline here at Dubai. They don't want the noise. So the interesting thing is then it's following the flight plan very nicely. So it carries on out to Ukra and then turns right. There's Ukra. Yep, it's doing it, look. So I did wonder. This is the stock 747. You don't expect it to do anything correctly. Obviously it didn't. It didn't establish the climb quickly at all. But once it did, it was actually doing it okay. I will admit I didn't go and arm the auto throttle on the wrong way. That's my bad. I should have thought of that. So we're about to come through 10,000 feet. So, oh yeah, the taxi lights can go off. Coming up through 10,000, so the landing lights can come off in a moment. And what's the transition altitude around here? Should have checked that, shouldn't I? Let's go and have a look. Is it on the SID chart? 13,000. Okay, so we've got a couple of thousand feet until we need to go and switch to standard barometric pressure. So that's up here. We'll just press the standard button when we come up to 13,000 feet then. We're doing okay. Okay, so here comes 13,000. I wonder if this will start flashing. Will it know about transition altitude? No, it won't. So we'll do it anyway. And doing it on one side has done it for both sides, which is not encouraging. At least we've got independent navigation displays, hey? So we'll go and turn the range on the other one up enormously. Obviously if we increase the range on this one, we get to see when we'll get to top of climb, which is always good. We're on our way. So off towards Vexab and then over to Ivero and Laldo. And you can see those here, look, Ivero, Laldo. Very good. So above 10,000 feet at Ludev, we're already higher than that. That's because we're going out towards airways, and airways up between specific altitudes. So you can see we're going to be on the B505 airway, which is flight level 150. And then Alpha 777 airway. Then the Lima 301 airway, which goes right the way across. Oh, then we run out of airways at that point at Ancox. Then we'll have a direct to... Oh no, it's not. It just hadn't rendered it in Navigraph. So Lima 301 until Karku. It's obviously an intersection. Then Mike 638 at flight level 280. That'll be a minimum. And then we're into the Star to come into Mumbai. So it's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? Should we have a look at the chart for that? So this is the approach chart, obviously, and then you've got the arrival chart, and then you've got the approach itself. So we leave the arrival and come in on a DME arc into the runway. Be interesting to see if it's got this or not, because remember, we can't actually get to that to program it because it was missing from the aeroplane, but it is in here, ILS 9, although it's saying via direct. So POCO 2B only takes us as far as there. So I very much doubt that this DME approach is going to be in the navigation commuter. We'll find out when we get there. What we might find is we end up going direct to the beginning of the ILS. We'll find out. That's half the reason for doing this, is to find out what it's going to do to us. So Peter's saying, wow, not in, I hope is it Peter or Petter? Not in the brand new A350, very unique. The reason for that is I am not going to run the beta of Flight Sim 2024. And for whatever reason, and I can understand why they've done it, Builds have built the A350 against the beta, against Sim Update 1, which isn't out because Asobo delayed it, obviously. It was supposed to have been out a week ago. So I can totally understand why Builds have done it, but I don't know. It's always easy to say these things after the fact. But I would have delayed the release for 2024 until Sim Update 1 had arrived, because without Sim Update 1, the A350 is broken. It only works correctly with Sim Update 1, which they would have been anticipating had already been out by the time they released the aeroplane. But for whatever reason, the Asobo have delayed it, and they've really pulled the rug out from underneath Build's feet. So yeah, I can understand. They're caught between a rock and a hard place, because if they hadn't released it, people would have said, how come the 2020 users have got it and the 2024 users haven't? And then they could equally say, okay, if you want to run it in 2024, you have to go and install the beta and join the beta program, which I'm not going to do. Anyway, let's just say I have sympathy for them. I'm just trying to figure out if I can get my browser to go full screen? Yes, I can. Hurrah! I'm talking about a laptop where I'm monitoring the YouTube chat. I'm wondering what held up the sim update. There must be something fairly serious wrong with it. Unless it's they're trying to get the marketplace in, because so many people are waiting now for the marketplace. It's probably harming the sales of 2024 quite enormously. I think a lot of people got it on the Xbox, what's it called? The subscription, and they've probably removed it. And of course, they'll be able to see the stats on that. Game Pass, that's what it's called. I should know this because my daughter's got an Xbox. We bought it for Christmas, so she's got Game Pass. She's got the Series S, is it? The one that is digital only? Which allows her to obviously change whatever game she wants to play all the time. Not sure that she does. I think she spends most of her time on Roblox. Anyway. It's a nice pretty view, isn't it? Shall we zoom in slightly to get rid of the panoramic effect? What's going on with that lump of... oh, it's a trim tab. Now, it looks like a spoiler. No, it's a trim tab. Oh my word, what's going on with that? I haven't got rudder deflection going on, have we? Who knows why it's doing that? Have we got a crosswind? A little bit of a crosswind, but doesn't explain the deflection. That's got me thinking now. Can we see the flight control status? Not enough to make any difference. Hydraulics, it all looks fine. Same pressures everywhere. It's the doors. Yeah, nothing else is going to show us anything worth knowing. There's no fuel disparity, is there, from left to right? No, it's equal. How odd. Just wondering why one is canted down and one is canted up. But it's not showing on any of the status displays. It's probably a bug. We'll take no notice of it. So I gather from what I've heard, I've never actually watched her playing it, my daughter spends hours playing a bus driving game within Roblox, where you take passengers and drive them around and drop them off. No idea, I've never seen it, never played it. Apparently it's very, very addictive. I did have a look for her to see if the European Truck Driving Simulator is available on Xbox, but it doesn't appear that it is. It's a shame. Whoever develops that, I think they're missing a trick there. I think there would be an army of people playing truck driving games if it was available. So how long is our route? We're just coming up towards 35,000 feet. Try changing to the co-pilot's seat. I always see what you mean. So if I was to set the trim on this side of the aeroplane, would it trim the wing on this side? No, that's not going to happen, is it? It's really odd though, isn't it? Because looking at the flight controls, you'd expect there to be some sort of disparity here that might just explain it. So Martin is saying the Fly Spotter achievement in Resident Evil 7 was the so-and-so to get. I've never played Resident Evil, I'm afraid. I remember when it came out. It was on PlayStation 2, wasn't it, originally? Or was it PlayStation 3? I can't remember. It was that era, wasn't it? Or it might have even been on PlayStation, the original Resi, as people called it. Yeah, I never got into those first-person horror games. I don't know why. I think the most disturbing thing I've ever seen, and it's from a video game, at Halloween a couple of years ago, a little boy came to the door. He could have been no more than 4 years old, dressed as this lunatic character, and he had just enough words to describe it, and he said he was Huggy Wuggy. And we didn't know who it was, and we searched for it on the internet afterwards and discovered it was an 18+ horrific horror video game. And this was a 4-year-old kid who was really proud that he was this horror video game character. Couldn't quite believe what we'd stumbled into. Okay, we're getting close to cruise altitude. Can we brighten some of these screens up? I'm going to have to go and find this out and see if it works. So brightness here should... Yep, brightness works on that. So is the brightness controls down here maybe? So, let's put the seatbelts on auto, shall we? Where have they put all of the... They're not underneath, are they? No. So that's the source selectors. That's the panel lights. They've hidden them up. Okay. Glare shield panel, flood, dome. But that's not the screen brightnesses, is it? Why is it being blind? Brightness, there we go. So this is the upper, which is that one, and lower. Far left. I'm being dim here, aren't I, somehow? Oh, are they out of view beneath the yoke or something? Outbound CRTY inbound knobs. Yeah, that's those two, but... Oh, so that is as bright as... Oh no, they go a little bit brighter. Okay. It's difficult to see if they're brighter or not, isn't it? So, on the other side... Oh yeah, you can just about see the brightness change. It's just because it's so bright outside, it's making it very obvious that they're quite dim. Let's turn the flight section straight back off. Whoops. There we go. Okay, so we are cruising along. Should we turn the seatbelt signs off? It was back here, wasn't it? Where was it? Seatbelts off. I mean, on auto it should do it anyway at cruise altitude, you would think. But we'll let the people go and queue up outside the toilet now that couldn't hold it for more than 5 minutes. And we're on our way to Mumbai. So the routing takes us, obviously we're going down the, what's this stretch of water called? Who's good at geography? If we open LittleNavMap, it's got Google Maps in it, hasn't it? Actually, it's got Mapbox in it as well. Have I showed any of you this? I think I did, didn't I? So let's go File, Open Flight Plan from Simbrief, Download, Create, don't save that one. So there's our actual route that we're doing, okay? And we'll remove the track so it doesn't put us off. So that's what we should have been doing so far, and we are still doing, hopefully. So it's the Gulf of Oman, of course it is. So I, for a bit of fun, about a month ago, or less than that, a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at LittleNavMap one night, and I thought, all these Mapbox maps, what actually is it? If you go and visit Mapbox on the internet, what you can do is go and sign up for free, and you get a free amount of data. So you can see here I've got 1,300 tile requests I've used so far. I get 200,000 on a free account for free. So I've hardly touched my allocation while I was playing with it. But once you sign up with Mapbox, they give you an API key, and you can plug that into the settings of LittleNavMap. And once you've done that, you can go and use all those other maps. So should we go and show you what the Mapbox... what should we... We'll have a look at all of them. Mapbox Dark. So that is that one. Let's go and zoom in somewhere so you can see it a bit more detail. They're vector maps, and they're really good ones. Obviously it doesn't look so good on a dark map unless you change the rest of the settings. So Mapbox Light. We've got Mapbox Outdoors, which is obviously their version of the terrain type view, where you've got the relief, but it's all vectors. So you can go and zoom in and give it a second look, and it's really clear. So if we go and choose Mapbox Satellite, they've got very good satellite maps as well. So if you were to zoom in and give it a second, it will come right down into very high detailed satellite maps of anywhere. Mapbox Streets, which is obviously going to overlay the streets onto the satellite for you. And Mapbox Street View, which is like Google's default view. And you can have user ones. So within their interface on the web, you can go and invent your own views. Mapbox Tiler Topographic. Oh no, it's a different one, sorry. Map Tiler. That's not a Mapbox one. So, but it's quite good, isn't it? Obviously it has limits in terms of how much you can use it, so you wouldn't want to give your API key out to anybody else. But it's a nice option to have. Obviously the elephant in the room is there's an unofficial add-on you can download off the internet from FlightSim.2, for example, to go and give yourself Google Terrain View, which is so fast it's unbelievable. It renders so quickly. It blows everything else out of the water, really. And it's vector based. So when you come in and look at it, it takes it a second or two, but it's so fast it's crazy. Some clever people at Google. How do I get the MSA figures to show? Click the icon. Do you mean the MS? What do you mean? Sorry, I don't know the term MSA off the top of my head. Minimum safe altitudes. Yeah, that's the NORAD stuff, isn't it? That's a really good question. I think because I've got the latest version of it, I don't think it can draw them. I think it would get that from a data source that 2024 doesn't have. So if you've got the latest version of this with 2024, yeah, I don't think you can use that anymore. That's interesting. It's not letting me show holdings either. Maybe they've been removed in the latest version for some reason. I don't know. To be honest, I had not looked at that or noticed it since you pointed that out. I didn't notice holdings had vanished. Alex has tons of notes on LittleNavMap online about what's in and out at the moment. So if you go and have a read on his website. Oh, so you're still in 2020? It should work. I wonder if it requires something. I'm sure if you email Alex, he'll tell you. He's really good normally at getting back pretty quickly to simple questions. I'm not sure if he's got his own Discord server where you might go and post it yourself. So anyway, we're going to be a little while until we leave the Gulf of Oman. So we're off across the Arabian Sea in a moment, look. Towards the, well, obviously flying along the Pakistan coastline to begin with, and then the Indian coastline. Very cool. So if we go and look now, we should see that's Muscat out there on the peninsula. So I'm going to leave a little message on the screen, and I'm going to go for a wander. Just close some of these messages. It's going to complain that these files don't exist anymore at me probably. Oh, it's actually crashed Notepad because it can't see them. That's interesting, isn't it? First time I've ever seen Notepad crash. I use it all the time at work. Oh no, it's did it give up? It did, didn't it? That's impressive. I managed. Can I have like a Hall of Fame thing for that? Managed to, the guy who crashed Notepad. Just stretching my legs. I shall write it properly. Just stretching my legs back soon. I want. Should I do this in? This is a sticky note program still. Yes, it is. It's still in Windows. Oh, it needs an update. What a surprise! We are getting the update ready for you. Come back next Tuesday. Downloading updates. Thanks, Windows. Here's this really simple program that should be tiny, but now it's got a 5 gig update, and it will probably want a reboot of Windows. And that's the last time I used it, look. That's funny. So let's delete that note. We want to go tap the note icon to create a note. Well, that doesn't work, does it? Click. So if I do that, I can put this up here. If I close that, does that stay there? Yes, it does. Perfect. How do I get rid of that bar? Perhaps I can't. I want a yellow sticky note. Oh, only just the top. Oh, that's really clever. So it has to stay there. Okay, so I need to go to task, not task manager. Taskbar settings. Behaviors. Automatically hide. So this can be in front of Flight Sim and not obscure the bottom of the screen. Something else we could do, which I haven't done for ages, is go to LittleNavMap and download the minimal layout, which all I've done is turned all the toolbars off. Put that up in the corner so you can see whereabouts we are. Put that next to it. And I'll be back in a bit. I've never crashed Notepad before. That was quite amusing. Never seen it crash before. I must have like special abilities. So obviously the computer's taken note watching me run the A350 this morning, trying it out with the latest build and watching it take the entire computer out, not just Flight Simulator. That was quite impressive, I thought. I had to pull the plug out. It crashed it so badly I couldn't do anything with it. Anyway, back in a few minutes. I'm going to go stretch my legs. It's going to be a while until we get near Dubai. So, sorry, Mumbai. So we're going to, you can see the black circle there for top of descent is being simulated. Should we go and actually go and see if I've got a 747 performance file? Yeah, I have. So that will give us a little bit more accurate. Oh, and that will only work if that's got the right IFR Flight Planet has. There we go. Obviously because it picked it up from Simbrief, didn't it? Okay, I'll be back in a bit. Alright, I'm back. So let's go and reopen the default layout in Navmap and see where we are. So about halfway. Hurtling along. Ground speed of 585 knots. Off the coast of Pakistan at the moment. We'll be coming past Karachi. It's probably too far away to see it though. Yeah, it's way out in the mist, look. And truth be told, we're not running in real time. Because that's real time. And that would be no fun at all to watch, would it? So what did the aeroplane just do? So it's doing a checklist incomplete warning over there, which is absolutely predictable. So what you can do is pull the checklist up on the panel over here. And we can say normal checklist. So, okay, they've not actually implemented this properly. So saying checklist complete, that's the pre-flight checklist, obviously. But I don't think we've got any easy way of getting through them. Because it's not fully implemented. So they've put stuff in you can't actually fix. And no controls, as far as I'm aware, to work through the checklists. Oh no, we've got a different one now. We've got before start. So we could go down. Yeah, we can't click on it. So have they actually given us the checklist controls in this version of the airplane? I don't think they have. Which is frustrating beyond belief. It's not fully implemented. It should be a touchscreen. Because there are no soft keys there, therefore it should be a touchscreen, and it's not. Unless they're going to allow us to use. No, that's the aural reset button. It's annoying, isn't it? Yeah, I'm at flight level 390, and if you're wondering why you can't see me, I've got the multiplayer turned off because I switched it off the other day. Let's go and see if I can turn it back on while we're in flight. So if I go to settings, online, real-time online, multiplayer on, save and back. I'm probably going to be in live mode though because of that bug. We probably want to change what part of the world we're in. Should we go for Southeast Asia? Online. Southeast Asia, save and back. And if I go and press Control Alt N, it should show me nameplates if there are any nearby. Let's go and wind the clock back a little bit further. There we go. Pretty. But yeah, the 747 obviously isn't finished, and hopefully the guys like Horizon and stuff like that, or groups like that, will hopefully come and fill the gaps of the things that Asobo never finished. I think it may be disingenuous to say Asobo didn't finish it. It may be that they contracted in third parties to build these aeroplanes. We don't know that Asobo actually built them. And it may be they had a budget to do it with, and they've now run out of budget, and therefore the airplanes are not finished. You know, if the and from what we've seen of aircraft development in 2024, if the simulator on which they were developing the aircraft kept changing, that could have put them in an impossible position. So Martin is saying there's only 800 devs in the team. Yeah, that sounds like a lot until you actually start to think through all of the different things that they were working on. It's a bit like there's a famous, or it was famous at the time, when Apple were about to release Apple Maps, they had like a developer preview event, and one of the guys from the Google Maps team was talking to one of the sales guys from Apple, because obviously the engineers weren't there, the sales guys were, and he didn't know who he was really talking to. The sales guy didn't know who he was talking to, and he asked the innocent question, how many people have you got working on maps? And they, you know, boastfully turned round, or the sales guy, obviously making stuff up as they went along, as sales guys and marketing people want to do, said, oh, you know, we've got several hundred people working on it. He said, that's interesting, because Google's got over 6,000 people working on maps, and has had for many years. So 800 might sound like a lot, but when you get a piece of software as complicated as this, maybe not. And they may not be devoted to this as well. So that might be, you know, the whole staff. But a big company is a whole different story. You're going to have sales, you're going to have marketing, you're going to have logistics, you're going to have people and culture, or HR, whatever you want to call them. You're going to have, you know, engineering, you're going to have all sorts of things. And within the simulator, there's going to be people, and Asobo don't just make the simulator, but even within the simulator, you've got the physics, you've got the aircraft modelling, you've got the avionics modelling, you've got the graphic design, you've got the artists that are working on user interface design, you've got APIs, you've got databases, you've got data formats for things to be stored and transmitted in. You've got the internet programmers that are working on the, you know, transmission and communication. So, and yeah, this is the other thing. People always call it, you know, they aim their fury at the man and blame Microsoft for everything. Microsoft have funded this. They've not really had much of a part in building this at all. And again, Microsoft has the same situation. Enormous company, many teams all over the world. But even the fact that the one of the big problems, I've worked on big projects, one of the big problems you get with big projects is, or one of the realizations, I should say, not a problem, a realization of working on a big project involving lots of people is the wonder about how any big project ever gets to the finish line. And people make fun of project managers, but without them, and without really good ones, no project ever would. So that kind of invidious position of checking where things are, what's been promised, what needs to be done, that a requirement is actually been written correctly. So you might deliver against a requirement within a big project and then discover that the requirement was incorrect, or that the requirement has changed during the time you were working on it. And that I imagine that has probably plagued Flight Simulator, because it's, you know, it's shifting sands. They wouldn't have known what was possible at the time they started, and as they worked on it, they would have discovered more and more things were possible, which would have been a nightmare to manage. You know, how do you direct staff to work on something when the requirements are not firm, and and a lot of it is the invention that's happening? It's not easy. And people that can kind of throw their barbed arrows, or whatever you want to call them, at them or they, whatever they want to call the developers or the people who've made the simulator, saying they should have done this or they should have done that. Very often the people who complain the most vociferously have never done or attempted to do anything similar, or ever been involved in anything at that sort of scale. And they think, you know, I've paid my £50, £100, I want a perfect military grade simulator for £50. Or for my Xbox account, £1 a month, or whatever it is. £15 a month, isn't it? So yeah, Martin's got a really good point there. It would be more shocking if a large IT project was on time, on budget and on spec. Absolutely. And you have to remember, especially with commercial projects, they're always done by the lowest bidder. So people will have gambled on at the spec stage, because you're guessing. Okay, it's an informed guess about what will be required to make something happen, to win the work. And you're always going to get the marketing people or the salespeople trying to get the work for you will always be trying to ask you how little time and effort could you do it with. Versus, you know, not the best. They're not asking you for you to do the best job. They're saying, what's the cheapest you could do it? What's the fastest you could do it? Because at the end of the day, if you're competing against 2 or 3 other contractors or organisations, the customer may well go and choose the cheapest. And sometimes you'll see that happen. I've seen it myself years ago, where I'm not going to name any names. We were working on a project, and we had been there for quite some time, and we'd done some really great work with them. And another large IT company, an international IT company, arrived, and they undercut everybody and won the work. And and it was quite obvious that they had it was during a downturn in the economy, and they probably had a lot of developers on the bench. And rather than make anybody redundant and lose the skills, they underbid just to get people work, to keep them, to have some money coming in, I guess. But yeah, I've seen it happen, where somebody intentionally became the lowest bidder, and they would have made a loss on the project, a massive loss. It's interesting though. I've worked in IT for, well, I don't know, 25, 30 years now. Something like that. 1995 I started, so yeah, it's 30 years this year. I hadn't even thought about that. Oh my word. And it would have been May, I think, I started. Oh my word, that's shut me up, hasn't it? The realisation I've actually been working in IT now for 30 years. I started off as a system... how do you describe my route? IT. I was the IT department for a small manufacturing company. A single man, one-man band. And I built the software systems that they used. So we used, now Visual Basic hadn't been invented yet. It would have been Microsoft Office which was still quite early on. We were still in Windows 3. Windows 3.11 for workgroups had just become stable and popular. Yeah, I built the software that the company used. Initially, they used things like Microsoft Access. We had about 30, 40 people using it at once. It worked really well. And then we got Visual Basic in when it first became stable and popular as well. And we built a lot of software. I built lots and lots of structural calculation software. It was a manufacturing company. And built software so they could make quotations quickly over the phone, like take in dimensions of buildings, and it did all the structural calcs for you and stuff like that. And I was there for, I don't know, 5 years, I think. And then I met a girl and moved. And got a new job, and I was there for 20 years, I think. Over 20 years. And became an application developer for a systems integrator, Microsoft partner. And then they got acquired about a year and a half ago by a much, much bigger Microsoft partner. I'm still doing much the same, building applications for, throughout those years, worked on corporate projects, both public sector and private sector, building all sorts of solutions and integrations and doing migrations and configuring things and inventing things. Just trying to think back over the years, some of the things I've worked on. I built the invoice approval system for MAN trucks many years ago. Invented it, implemented it, deployed it. What else have I done? All sorts of stuff. Many years ago, I did they don't exist anymore, so I can tell you. I did the software that managed the safety certificates for sea containers. For the sea containers. It was actually the document capture part of it for the paperwork surrounding the safety certificates of sea containers. Microsoft Access was much better than people think. You hear about it today, and it's kind of the scourge of IT departments, because you get these little fiefdoms where people who were citizen developers built databases using Access, but they didn't really know what they were doing. But luckily I did computer science at college, and we did database design. So, the whole first normal form and all the rest of it. And I carried that through into the professional world, so we built the databases in Access properly. And Access had a fantastic report designer. Nobody knew because they never learnt it properly. It's still now probably the best form designer I've ever seen. Just trying to think. During the time once I started proper work then, after leaving the manufacturing company and then moved on, the web came about obviously in the early to mid 90s, and Linux appeared, and I was quite early looking at Linux and PHP and MySQL and Apache, so LAMP as it was known. And I kind of lucked into it. I had a few hobby projects on the go, and I wrote one of the very first blog scripts. We didn't know it was called blogging back then. I wrote a web page to put a diary on the internet, a journal. And somebody was looking over my shoulder one day at work and said, "Oh, you're building a blog." And I said, "What on earth's that?" And we threw a few ideas around over lunchtime, and by the end of that week, they'd convinced me to release it as open source. And I didn't know what open source was. This was back in about 2000, I think. Because yeah, by about 2000 Linux had become stable and widely used. And anyway, yeah, I wrote the script up and released it to the internet and ended up becoming a one-person support desk for thousands and thousands of blogs using it all over the world, which wasn't fun. I did go and find it a little while back. It's still on a few of the archive sites out there that were popular in the day, and discovered that it's had like 500,000 downloads or something crazy. But it was a bit scary because towards the end of the time before I kind of walked away from it and stopped supporting it, Novell included it with their Linux distribution for corporate server farms, and I started getting support calls from corporate servers all over the world from their teams where they had questions about how to change things with it, and Novell had never actually asked me. But yeah, right, we're getting close to needing to do something in the plan. So when we took off, we weren't sure what was going to happen, were we? So there's Xolu. It looks like it's got the star then, but we don't know if it's going to have anything beyond the star. So what we could do is go to plan mode, zoom in a bit more, and then go and step through the legs. It's got this wrong look. Step. So it looks like it's got a hold in it. CI09 and FI09. So it looks, it's got that. Oh, this is a failing of LittleNavMap, by the way. So it obviously hasn't got the approach. Show approach details. So we want the approach details for runway 09. So it would be ILS 09, wouldn't it? See, they are very close to that route, but not exactly the same. So it is straight lining it basically. It's going from N-bomb and then vectors in. So yeah, we can do the same then. We'll just turn in. If we go and have a look at Navigraph to see what the actual altitudes are like when we get near it. So at the moment we are still on the way across the sea here. So I'm just looking for altitude restrictions. So there's a hold out here. What we'll probably do is go selected mode when we get through here and just take it in, because obviously it hasn't quite understood any of it. Look, it's got some rubbish in there. It looks like that might be beyond the airport even. It's like a missed approach plan, but a crazy one that looks like a ball of wool. Because that is VABB right underneath that all happening. So I'm just reading Martin's comments there about investing money in things and regretting later not doing so. Well, you never know though, do you, what's going to happen? I remember back in the day, around the time I joined the company I worked for 20 odd years, I was getting married, so we had no money. Obviously I was selling my apartment, we were buying a house together, we were selling her house as well, and obviously paying for a wedding, so we had nothing. And Borland at the time had a fantastic reputation. They just they had Delphi at the time, which was a fantastic development environment. If you don't know about it, there's another whole story about that. But yeah, Borland had Delphi, which was by far the best development environment for Windows in like the 98 days, 2000 days. Borland were working on a project they were about to release called Kylix, which would have unified, well, it did unify development across Windows and Linux, allowing you to write desktop applications that could be cross-compiled with the same code base, and they would run on both operating systems. And I knew they were about to release it, and I wanted to buy Borland stock. Unfortunately, Borland couldn't organise a drinking competition in a brewery. Borland, not long after that, failed spectacularly and became a different company name called Embarcadero, I think they were called. But it was just stunning. Delphi, when it was first launched on magazine cover discs with a consumer license that was only about $60. And then they decided it was going to be a corporate tool after that, and it jumped from being $60 for the basic version to I think over $1,000 a seat, which meant nobody bought it, nobody learnt it, and it killed it instantly. And then to fight against that, you had Visual Basic 3 and 4, I guess, at the same sort of time, and 5 then latterly, that were being sold, sort of $60 for the basic version. And they cleaned up, even though it was a far inferior product. Anyway, I won't go on too much. So let's go and put this back on map mode on the way in, so we are aware that when we get near the nonsense on the map, we will be going and switching to away from LNAV mode to selected heading mode. We also need to go and program in the ILS into the aircraft, if it will let us. So let's go and have a look. So we got 109.5 and 89 degrees. Does that agree with Navigraph? 108.9, 90 degrees. We'll just say 108.9 and 90 then. So the ILS on this thing, I have a funny feeling it only works in here. But we're about to find out. If we go radio navigation, ILS 109.5, 91. So it has got it. So it came in with the Simbrief data then. Okay. So with a bit of luck it will work when we switch over to landing system. An airplane just went past us. We have got some airplanes around. I don't think it's a human, that was an AI aircraft. It was a couple of thousand feet below us, wasn't it? Which would make sense. Yeah, so I can re-show you the flight planning stuff now. We've got a few minutes until we start descending. Let me just check where top of descent is. Again, it was estimated on here, wasn't it? Yeah, we've got 100 miles or so yet. So, what I did, I went to Simbrief, generated the plan, copied it from the route plan bit here. Oh, gone to the wrong window now, and I've done it twice in a row because I'm a super genius. And then to the flight planner, so I go to plannerflightsimulator.com, and then within here I went to route and pasted in my plan. Got rid of the code. The coding bit on the start of the plan is your average speed, or cruise speed, sorry, and flight level. You can delete that out of the plan because it won't. I don't think it will understand it. Should we try it? So let's paste it back in and just leave it in there and say save. Will it understand it? Yeah, it ignored it anyway. But it's pulled the route in, look, that we're actually doing. So then in planner.flightsimulator.com you can then save that, which I did. And then in the aeroplane, I got as far as programming the FMS. And then I pressed tab. I loaded the flight plan from the saved one from planner.flightsim, and it let me. And then I was able to send that to the avionics. And it worked. So even though the FMS is broken and you can't go and program your route in properly, pulling it in from the tablet worked. So when you look at these flight plans, I'll pull that up into Notepad if I can manage not to break Notepad. If anybody doesn't know what these plans actually say, let's have a look. So let's just make this a bit bigger. So this is your typical flight plan. That's the departure airport. So let's break this down. So that's the routing along the way. That's that, that's that. Okay, so that's your departure airport, ICAO code, and the runway. That is your arrival or destination and runway. That next code is your cruise speed and flight level. So so cruise speed is the N part. Don't ask me why it's N. Flight level is F. The rest of this is, okay, that's the SID, or Standard Instrument Departure. That's the routing, and that's the standard star, which means standard terminal arrival route. So notice the route doesn't have the approach in it. It only tells you the runway, because there may be many ways of approaching runway number 9. But anyway, so how do we know that that's the SID and that's the star? They've got letters and numbers in a jumbled up order. If you see any of these, so let's just split the routing out. When you get airways in play, this becomes very, very obvious, and this one's a really easy one. If they are alpha, if it's all alpha characters, so alphabetic characters, they are fixes or waypoints. So you can do that all the way down. So you can say that's a fix, 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 that's a fix. And for any of these ones in the middle, you could go as far as saying we're on this airway until we get to Laldo. When we leave Laldo on this airway until we get to Nadso. And there may be many waypoints in between. So it's shorthand in a way. So this is an airway. So if there's a letter and a load of numbers, it's an airway. And the reason I put this slash here, the ones that are in between airways, you might call them intersections, or an intersection, because airways lead to that point and leave that point. Okay, so it might be true of the first one as well. So if you look on a map to see those, if you zoom out, you'll notice, look, there's one there, look, Exolu. Came in on M638, left it on the Poco 2B, but it's actually I09, look. But it won't say that in the plan, it will have the name of the star. So L301, look, Takaku. But you can see it's an intersection, there's lots of them coming in and out of there. So that's what's in that string, is everything you need to know for the routing, basically. So I actually quite like programming the FMSs by hand. Where are we? So we need to start thinking about it. We're about 70 or 80 miles out from top of descent. So if we increase the range, there it is, look, 80 miles out. So knowing that we're going to hit problems on the way down, let's go and notice it won't actually start descending because we haven't told it how to descend yet. We'll go for vertical speed descent and play with it ourselves on the way down just to see if we can get it to see what we can get it to do. So on the way in, let's go and have a look at constraints to see if we've got any. So at Pocon, Pocon 2A would be this one. So we need to get down to flight level 120, so 12,000 feet, and 230 knots. So 250 knots at Pocon. Are we doing Pocon 2B we're doing. So for 2B, that's interesting. So 230 knots at 11,000 feet. Why is this thing from Boffin? Oh, Boffin's out here. From Exolu. Okay, that makes sense then. So we're doing Pocon 2B. We need to be at 12,000 feet. Or 11,000 feet when we get to Nbon. We need to be above 12 at Exolu. So our real target is to get to 11,000 feet for Nbon. Okay. And 250 knots at Pocon. So there's Pocon coming. Obviously 250 knots isn't too hard to hit because at high altitude we're not going much faster than 250 anyway. But we can obviously go to manage speed, selected speed mode. Take VNav off and we'll be able to dial in the speed and say 250 straight away. Does the FMC recognize the M677? It does if it works correctly. So when you are programming a route, if you look in the route page, you'll notice you're on page 1 of 3. So you're only putting in origin and destination on page 1. If you go next page, you put in the route on the left hand side, or the airway, sorry, and the intersections on the right. So the first one in here, this makes no sense seeing this actually. You on the first line, if you're filling this out by hand, you leave the via empty and you just put in the first waypoint on an airway, and it will say direct in here, because you do the route. If you're doing it by hand, you do the route before you do the SID and the star. So in other words, it won't have anything for the via because you're going from the runway to the first waypoint that's on an airway. So you only fill in the right hand side and it will come up saying direct when you do it, and then on the next line you put your first airway until you leave the airway, so your waypoint at which you change airways, and you just keep doing that. So airway, intersection, until you get to the last, is POCON look in this case, is the last waypoint on an airway, and then the star has actually put this in. The star and the approach have put these last bits in for you. So you just need to, in this case it was only those first few bits, look. So this has been disappearing as we've been flying. There would have been a lot more in it earlier. Yeah, so what you will see is you'll put your route in, just to finish this subject off. When you put your route in, if you do it by hand, you go, like I said, you go waypoint, airway, waypoint, airway, waypoint, all the way down. So you only put an airway in for the point from where you joined it until you leave it. Having done that, if you then go and look in legs, you'll see stacks of waypoints, because every waypoint along the airway will appear in the legs page. But in the route page, you'll just see the intersections and the airways. Make sense? So that's why I said it's like shorthand. If you say you're only joining, so here's a good one, look. L301 was from here, look. So we would have had Vaxim, then L301, but it would have appeared on legs as Rasky and Cox and Karku. But on the route page it would have just been Vaxim L301 to Karku. And you can actually see it above the map up here, look. There's the legs appearing and the routing in like a combined view. I don't like the way Navigraph does this. If you hit the pencil, you see the routing. If you let go of it, you see the waypoints as well. It's a bit of a nightmare. Should we wind our time back a little bit and make it brighter in the cockpit again? There we go, we can actually see the instruments again. So, top of descent coming up. Yeah, maybe I should do a blog post about that. Or maybe just a video explaining that one subject about what is in the routing information. And it's worth pointing out a SID or a star. The SID, in this case that one, is again, it's a macro essentially. So it's many waypoints, including altitude and speed constraints. And the same is true of the star. There's many waypoints including altitude and speed constraints. So when you go and put the star in, it may put 6 or 7 waypoints and speeds and altitudes into the flight management computer. So when you look down here, we've still got a few moments. When you look in the legs page, you can see, obviously there's the route through the waypoints, but over here you can see they're starting to see speed constraints. So 250 knots at Pocon that we looked up, and then 230 knots at Enbon, and the altitudes. So some of these are not, it's interesting, this isn't very good. There should be stars next to the ones where they are I think they're bigger. There's a bigger font. I don't know if you noticed that. So if I go closer to this, do you notice the font, the numbers are bigger? That's how they've represented that those are actually constraints. So the ones that are not big are calculated. In the Airbus it puts a star next to them. I think it should in a Boeing as well, to be honest. So we're going to start descending, otherwise we're going to end up in trouble later on. So we want to go to 11,000 feet, don't we, straight away? So if we select, so I've pressed it, look, it's lit up. I didn't know it did that. So the airplane started descending. And we want to get to 250 knots as well. So should we go for, instead of vertical navigation mode, so let's go vertical speed mode. It's doing 1800 feet a minute downhill at the moment. So we've told it to do that speed. We'll change this to indicated airspeed mode and say, well, actually, we'd like 250 knots. It might not be able to do it, mind. So is the speed coming off? Because it may, yeah, look, it's gone for the speed at which it can glide, or the descent rate at which it can glide. If we put the spoilers out, we can get rid of that speed. He says, famous last words. I've just thrown the spoilers out completely, and that's helping us without changing our descent rate. Because what the airplane did, of course, when it went into the descent on VNAV mode, it went for the best glide descent rate. So without spoilers, it did the best it could, which was 1800 feet a minute. So then if we take away the spoilers, the engines should drop back again. But remember, we're using vertical speed mode. So we can go and command a vertical speed that it can't hold 250 knots at. It's just about managing it. If we suspect that's not going to work, so even at idle, we're gently accelerating. So what we could do is say, okay, try 1700 feet a minute. And it's going to creep back the other way, look. The thing you have in your favour, obviously, is as you get lower in the atmosphere, the air gets thicker and more drag. So you can descend steeper the lower you get in the glide. So we're letting the airplane steer itself according to the flight plan at the moment. Let's when we come down through this final bit, so we're on our way down to Pocon, we need to be at or above. Yes, we're aiming to get down to 11,000 feet at N-bon. So look, we're not going to do it at this descent rate. So what we're going to do is go for it. You can see, look, the green banana's coming in. That's our estimated point at which we'll get to the target altitude. But obviously that's going to make us accelerate. So we're going to throw the spoilers out to hold it. So with the spoilers out, we can make it in time. So you're getting the benefit now of far too many hours messing around with aeroplanes. Most of this was learned with the Zibo mod 737 many years ago in X-Plane. We're now getting a caution because we've still got the speed brake out. It's not a serious concern. We're going to have a look at outside look. You can see the speed brakes are out. And they're allowing us to come down. Remember, we were quite high, we were at 39,000 feet. So we can bring the range down on this. So we're looking to be down at 11,000 for N-bon, at which point we'll turn left. So we can go and get that heading ready. So when we get to N-bon, we want to be pointing 90 degrees. So let's go and spin the heading bug round. You can see it coming round, look. We went the wrong way round the compass then, by the way. So when we do select heading mode on the autopilot, when we run out of route basically, we'll be looking for 90. So when we get to N-bon, we're suddenly going to go heading mode and get the aeroplane to turn left. We're holding 250 knots just. So it's actually, yeah. Let's pull the spoilers back. It's raising a little bit because the it takes time for the engines to spool down again. So we actually need 250 knots at Pokon, and then we need 230 knots at N-bon. So following doing this, we'll be on the run in towards the airport. So actually, we don't want 90 degrees from N-bon, do we? Looking at that. The runway's this way, so yeah, VABB is at an angle. It's not at the angle we want. So what we'll do, we're gonna cheat slightly. Yeah, there it is. There's the angle. So this would all be vectors in the real world, but we're going to measure that off and say if we measure this on the map, so we get lined up nicely. We want about 117 degrees, so 120 would be fine. So we don't want 90 degrees, we want 120 to get the vector across to where we need to be going. So it's just coming through Pokon at 250, and then we'll set it back to 230 when we're a bit closer to N-bon. Notice I've set this so we're actually going to be down to altitude early, which will give us some deceleration time on the flat, so not while we're still trying to go downhill. Okay. So we also need to find out the barometric pressure at the destination. So let's go with the weather, 1012 hectopascals. So what's the 4,000 feet transition altitude at Mumbai? So it's quite low. We don't have to worry about that for quite some time yet then. Yeah, I've not actually looked at the weather forecast properly. No, it looks okay. 0 knot wind. No sig. What does no sig mean? I'm not sure of the weather codings. I ought to write a blog post on it just to teach myself. What does no sig mean? Does anybody know? Let's get rid of that caution, otherwise we won't know if it lights up for something else. It is quite foggy out there, isn't it? So it's simulating smog. Mind you, it's dark though, it's night. I don't know if that's going to make much difference. Because remember, we've wound the time back. I imagine the sun causes most of the smog, doesn't it? With heating up the air. Anyway, let's see how we go. So yeah, this doesn't appear we can clear the checklist out of the way, which is a real shame, because we're going to get the message showing up there all the way in. Shall we look outside? Oh yeah, look at this. We're going to be flying right into that. Aha, so no sig means no significant change. Let's go and reduce the range on this side, because we might need it if we go to approach mode on this side. It's handy to be able to still see navigation on the other side, or plan mode, map mode even. So let's go for 230 knots. See if it can do it. I'm still on maximum spoilers, by the way, but I think we're going to do it quite easily. So following doing that, we need to be at 3,800 feet at 15 miles out. It's interesting, isn't it? So N-Bon at 11,000 feet, which we're just coming up to. So there's N-Bon. And we're just about at 230 knots, so we can get the spoilers out now. It's going to creep up, obviously, because the engines take time to spool down. Then it'll fall back again. There it goes, look. I'm going to go and put the landing lights on now. But I know we're 1,000 feet above the point we should, but I'm not going to worry too much. So transition altitude is 4,000, so we don't need to do the barometric pressure yet. Coming in towards N-Bon, and then we'll turn left. I wonder if this will let me get rid of the vectors. Should we try it? So if I pull CI 109 over the top and press execute, yeah, it'll do it for us. Look, so we can leave it on the normal routing. So that's kind of what we were going to do with the 120 degrees. That is that route, look. It's the same thing, so we can leave it on lateral navigation. I just wasn't sure whether this would even let us edit the route, but it did work. Yeah, so we don't need to start flaps yet. We're still at 230 knots. Well, I guess we could go for first stage, and it will allow us to. So we just look. We're coming out towards level 1 flaps now. That will give us a little bit of spoiler, but you can see the engines are having to come up to maintain the speed because of the amount of drag. So it wants to be us to be above 3,800. At CI 109, CI 09. So we'll go for 4,000 feet as our next target. If this will let me do it. And we'll go vertical speed mode again to do it. Because this is quite cool, because you get to see the green banana. That's interesting, isn't it? Look, so it is about 1,800 feet a minute, which is your natural glide angle. Would get you to about the right height in about the right distance. So those numbers are not there by accident. This you'll see this 1,800 feet a minute number across a lot of different big aircraft. They all tend to be around that same number range for gliding, or aeroplanes of this era anyway. Right, so we're going down to 9,000 feet, and we have a traffic sign showing up. There's somebody in front of us. Oh, there he is, look. IGO 1455. It's about to go past. I'm going to turn the labels off, by the way. So we'll still see them on TCAS. So let's make sure that we're not on TARA. So we're just on TA mode, so the airplane won't react. And now we've slowed down, look. The missed approach is making a bit more sense. It's drawing the radius according to current speed. So do we have any more speed restrictions? It'll be on here now, won't it? We're on our way across the vector part. Speed. Has it got anything written specifically? No, it hasn't. So it's just your aircraft natural approach speeds. So let's pull this down then. And the flaps will cause enough drag to scrub the speed off. You can see the ILS is coming up, and the localizer. We've already picked up the radio signal from them. They're appearing on the edges of the screen already. So as soon as we get below the ILS, below the glide slope, we could technically go for approach mode. I'll wait until we've turned the corner and straightened up though. So we're coming down towards 4,000 feet as well. Let's just double check. 1012 or 29.88. I'm not sure what this is set on. It's on inches, so it'll be 29.88. So we're within 500 feet of it. Let's do it now. So back off this. 29.88. And that's done both. Good. What about this one? 1019 hectopascals. It's in. Okay, that's interesting. You can't change this one. We'll leave it alone then. So let's go for approach mode. We've got locked on signal on both. They've gone filled in, look. And next level of flaps. Why have we not got a top speed rating showing lower than that? That seems a bit odd.
Landing gear, landing gear, landing gear.
Yep, I know, I forgot.
Landing gear, landing gear, landing gear, landing gear, landing gear.
So we're descending on the glide slope now.
Landing gear, landing gear, landing gear.
It takes a while for the gear to come out.
Landing gear, landing gear.
It's because I commanded full flaps before the gear. So that's my bad. So it's just chasing the glide slope. It's not holding onto it very well, is it? So somewhere in this murk, we're going to see an airfield at some point. So we've got the landing lights on. Let's go and put the taxi light on as well on the nose leg. So that's a range of 10 miles across this. Let's hope we see a runway soon. Get rid of the speed. Would be really nice if we saw. Oh, here we go. Just see the leading lights appearing. In the smog. And they disappeared again. Or maybe that wasn't them. Looks like we're low. Not sure how good this is going to be at landing itself. Shall I take over in the final? So autopilot's gone on across the board. You know, I don't think this is going to make a very good job of it. So that's me now. Okay. Let's get rid of the warning. Yeah, it wasn't making a very good job of it, was it? And now it's sat me so low I can't see anything. God, the autopilot took it right to the stall limit. A little bit high, I know. I've got no elevators. Oh, it's because of my point of view, isn't it? But I had no elevator control then. That was bizarre. Again, stock aeroplane. How weird. Do the reversers work? Sort of. So it was almost good until it got near the business end of the flight, and then it kind of had the weirdest flight model in the known universe. But it wasn't, you know, impossible. It was just odd. So we'll take this high-speed exit. Obviously this is stock scenery, it's not a special version of Mumbai. So we're off the runway, so that was an interesting problem to have, wasn't it, with the viewpoint. And the strobes can go off. So let's go Alt 8, Shift Space. Yeah, look how low it sits you. You can't see over the glare shield at all. And look how high her head is. We should be up here, look. The default view is like you're sat in the bottom of the seat. Yeah, we slammed into the runway, but that's because the flight model was odd. I had no elevator. I was at full pulling back and nothing was happening. And we still had, you know, sort of 10 or 15 knots left. Don't know where we're going to park. There's no, there are some markings. I tell a lie. So we'll just park in the middle of here. That. At least I've proven you can actually go and fly the stock 747 somewhere. And yeah, you have to work around a few little bits and pieces with it, but it's more or less alright. So now we're back on the ground. Free press, Shift and 7 was it? To see overhead? Let's turn off head tracking. Do we get external power made available to us? No, we don't. I guess we can do that. If I press scroll lock, is it? Oh no, it's up here these days, isn't it? Speech bubble. Tune to ground. Ground services. Okay, why can't we ask for the external power? Okay, we're not going to. So we'll put the APU back on. And it will say APU Gen Avail in a few moments. All I'm doing is I don't want to cut the engines off and lose power to the airplane in one big go. So we'll put the APU back on, seeing as we can't have external power. Let's see if it works. So yes, they've simulated it. So we should be able to use the APU. Bus transfer is automatic in the 747-8, so we don't have to do bus transfer at least. We can turn off the APU engine bleeds though, and the packs. They don't have to be on. Here we go, APU gen's available, so we've done that. So it should bus transfer over to it, because we're, oh yeah, so that should have already happened. So then we can just shut the engines down. Oops, if you don't click on the same thing twice by accident. And it shouldn't have a panic attack because it's using the APU now for power. And by the same token now the engines are off, we can turn the hydraulics off. Lights, we've already turned most of the lights off, haven't we? Beacon light can go off now. Nav light can come off. The emergency lights was up there, that can go off now. So then, having done that, we can turn all the fuel pumps off now. Obviously it's showing pressure warnings. Turn the window heats off. The wing anti-ice can go back to off. And I think we can now turn the APU off. Obviously it uses APU power then for a lot of that, so obviously now we're just on batteries. So if we go batteries off and we're cold and dark. So that's interesting. If this was simulated accurately, the MCP will normally stay on in accurately modelled aeroplanes for a few seconds. So there we go. We've shut everything down. We could have gone and asked for the gate and everything to come across. I'm not sure if it would work in the simulator. I guess should we put the battery back on to get the radio and see if we can do that. If we go, not that display, it's in here, isn't it? So ground services, could we actually get it to do that? No. It doesn't understand coming in, does it? That's a shame. Unless we have to do request taxi to parking first, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, let's turn it all back off. Okay, so I'm going to call it there. I'm getting pretty tired actually, but that was a fun flight. So we covered an awful lot of information. So from what people seem to be interested in there, I should do a video about this whole subject of pulling flight plans to bits and explaining what it is, you know, what all the bits are and what that really means in terms of an aeroplane. It sounds like that might be useful to people. So yeah, I'll do that again soon. But I think it's just good to show the stock aeroplanes that you can use them, and yeah, they're not going to fly perfectly and you might have to work around things, but sometimes there are ways of doing that. So anyway, mission achieved. We arrived in Mumbai in one piece, even if we did slam into the runway. It looks quite pretty out there across the city, doesn't it? So if we go to drone camera, Shift X, isn't it? And then now I'm going to get the keys wrong for this. And then if we go up in the air, do we get to see the city? It looks pretty, doesn't it? Even though it's all smoggy. There's the coast over there. And obviously we've got the airport here. And okay, it's only an AI generated one. It's not a custom airport, but it still looks quite cool. Right, I'm going to leave it there. And I'll see you all again soon. Take care.